Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Wednesday morning edition of Sidelines. We have a lot to cover today. Dudley Dawson here with us, hogville.net. Be Doug Dean checks in from Birmingham in the second segment. And hour number 2, Coach Matt Dean will join us, and Coach Jackie Sherrill will chime in his thoughts on the future of college football, because there is a lot that is happening right now. You know, there's really never, and we know this, there's never an off season. Their ACC meetings have been going on the first couple of days this week, and they'll continue today over in Amelia Island, Georgia. And they're talking about primarily, I think the number one thing that they're trying to do is find out, hey, what is going to happen with the ACC? Is there, you know, is can you hear me?
What did you do?
But bottom line is, their bottom line is the ACC is trying to save itself. You got all these stories coming up that Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are calling themselves the Magnificent Seven or whatever it is, and that they're upset about the revenue distribution, the sharing in the ACC, and that they possibly could leave. Hell, Clemson and Florida State are saying they're carrying the weight of the conference. They should get more money. So look, that's a topic that people are going to want to explore. But yesterday, ACC, I know the athletic director from Florida State came out and said, no, everything's been overblown. We're happy in this league. We're quite happy to be here in the ACC. And I just, if that's true, then you need to act like it, because right now it appears as if the ACC is a conference, and I don't want it to fold, but they got a lot to talk about. But anyway, we are here 6 days a week, 50 hours plus a month of content. Sidelines, that's what we are. Follow us on Twitter at @sidelines_live. So let's get started. Dudley Dawson at beautiful Pebble Beach baseball diamond. And speaking of baseball, I said about a month ago, just to myself, I think I said it to you, I think Arkansas, this is the best team Dave Van Horn's had. And you said it may not be the best team talent-wise, but probably experience-wise and all. Man, this SEC baseball race, it's going to be – I don't know how big Hoover's going to be, but I think we're going to have a bunch of teams get to Omaha this year, and Arkansas being one of them.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that's not going to happen, because with all the injuries they've had this year, it's been amazing what they've been able to get through. This weekend, they take over sole possession of the first place in the league, and they've done that with basically without their top 3 hitters, the 1, 2, 3 guys in the lineup. They've had guys that have been good players for them, become great players for them during this time that these guys have been hurt. Hunter Holland comes out and throws a 9-inning complete game where he retires 19 in a row at one point. You've got your I guess regarded ace Hagen Smith back in his slot, and Brady Tigert is continuing to amp up his number of pitches as he comes back from injuries. Suddenly, this looks like a team that could get back to the Omaha, and I don't think you ever bet against Dave Van Horn in that situation.
Yeah, well, you mentioned something about the top 3 hitters. Look around most of the SEC remaining 13 teams. It's, can we keep our top 3 pitchers healthy? That's a great dichotomy there.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things, LSU still got a great chance to win it all when you have Dylan Cruz and Tommy White as your great hitters. Paul Skeens is a pitcher. The back end of their bullpen has faltered, and Mississippi State goes in there, wins a couple of games this weekend, shifts the balance up at the top of the standings. You got to give Chris Lemonis a lot of credit. There's been a lot of acrimony down there. There's been a lot of losing down there. And for them to go to Baton Rouge and win 2 of 3 tells you that these guys that he has are continuing to play for him in a situation that's not, really good at all as they come down the stretch.
Yeah, and you talk about LSU, Paul Skenes as a pitcher. I remember a couple of weeks ago looking at reading a scouting report before they played Auburn. It was like, well, he's really good. But after him, their pitching staff is not exceptional, but somehow they've been number 1 team in the country. And that's why you cannot ever take off, can you? I mean, Mississippi State gets 2 out of 3 in Baton Rouge, and they fired their pitching coach 3 weeks ago. That's almost like a vote of confidence for a coach. That's not a good sign, but there's no quit in these guys. And they are 2 years removed from being a national champion. We know what that gets you in this league. It gets you fired. In football, it happened to Gene Chizik. Hopefully it won't happen to Chris Lemonis, but they've got talent. Arkansas this year, last year they did not get to host the Super Regional. This year, if they hold serve, I believe they're hosting a regional, and obviously if they win it, they've got a Super. Would you?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously you kind of they're headed to Vanderbilt this weekend. I'm pretty excited about that. Should be a great series. If they win 2, they'll win the SEC title, which would be amazing from all the injuries they've had. Yeah. And of course, then we got the Billy Joe Stevie Nicks concert that they're in Nashville this weekend. I'm excited about as well. So looking forward to the weekend more than I have some before. But it is again a testament to just the resiliency, I guess, of this team. It talks to you about the coaching staff. Really, they've gone from a team again, and I probably talk about this every week, but the fans react to one game. You lose to Lipscomb, and the game has passed Dave Van Horn by, and here he is sitting number 2 behind a Wake Forest team who's number 1, and now you have, I guess, Florida and LSU also in the top 5. At one point, I think 5 of the 7 teams in the polls were SEC teams, 5 of the top 7. That's just an unreal league, and unreal in that many teams have somehow got around these injuries. To various clubs at various positions. It's been a rash of these things, and it's been fun to cover this year, and that doesn't even include some of the off the field stuff that's gone on.
Yeah. Well, in college baseball has NIL, like football and basketball, but it's not out there at the forefront. You think that might be another reason why baseball is so popular? You're not hearing about kids being unhappy and trying to play their current school, off of another for more cash. Not that they don't deserve it and want it, but I'm falling more in love with baseball every year because of what's happening in college baseball.
Yeah, college baseball is finally getting maybe the attention that it's deserved for a long time with the networks being able to get more games on TV, the advent of streaming. It's certainly, again, I've always said if you don't think you can watch the game, you must not have a smart TV. You must have a dumb TV, and you need to spend the money to go out and get a smart TV, because every game you want to see, with the exception of Arkansas's games that are played in North Little Rock, are on TV. You have the opportunity to watch, and I think that helps the game grow when you have the more games that you can actually see. They can talk. They use the words televised and streamed. All I know is it's on my TV.
Yeah. Exactly. And that maybe the hardest app to get on your phone, if you take a survey, is the ESPN Plus or whatever it is. That one, I hear and I read more vulgarities when people, God dang, I'm trying to get it on it, but it's not that hard. I tell you what's hard is if you have an Android, if you don't follow the steps, figuring out how to get on StreamYard. That can be difficult. But college baseball, if you look at the SEC, last year we had 9 teams be invited to the tournament. Ole Miss was the last team picked. They got on a hot streak, but they struggled a lot during the regular season. You look at a team like LSU. Here's an interesting text from Todd Rundgren. LSU is dead if they make Omaha. One superstar pitcher will get them beat when he can't pitch every game. Well, they've got good pitchers, but Dudley, they've lost 9 games in the conference now, and that trending line is down because of the pitching. Can you fix that this late in the season? I mean, you saw Joseph Gonzalez he's done. He's not going to play anymore. He's just going to try to make it, professionally. Auburn's ace, but Auburn's top 3 pitchers probably hadn't pitched 6 innings all season. But you know what? You figure it out. You improvise. You overcome. You adapt. Clint Eastwood, Heartbreak Ridge, I get it. But that's all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that, LSU scores enough that they can outscore a lot of teams that they're going to play in the regional. And if they win the regional, super regional, I think they have enough pitching. As we watched this weekend, it was more back in the bullpen. I'm sure that Jay Johnson will, figure something out. That's still a very talented team. You don't hear as much chatter from LSU fans these last couple of weekends, but they've had a great 3/4 of the season. Now it's probably getting right, and it's going to be interesting. Tennessee is a team, that was kind of left for dead there at one point. They play really well at home, not so much on the road. Yeah, going to be a big key for them to get a regional, and I would think they're in position to do that now. But we'll see how it plays out. But I can just go down that list. Alabama playing great. All of a sudden, Auburn, and then we talked about the friend of the show who is doing a great coaching job as well. Suddenly, and even in a loss here, I think South Carolina, they lost obviously 2 or 3 here, but Mark Kingston did, he could see life in his team after 6 straight losses or 7 straight losses after the first game here. And they're very dangerous with Ethan Petrie and the guys there at the top of their lineup. I could just keep going and going and going about the strength of the SEC. How many teams get in? How many teams have regionals? That's going to, be a big key to them pushing forward. But as we saw with half the field last year at the College World Series was the SEC, wouldn't be surprised if it's the same way this year.
Yeah, and there's not a better baseball series in the country this weekend than Arkansas at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It's surprising that Vanderbilt came in with getting swept at Florida, but Florida is playing really well. Probably has the player of the year if you want to look at a 2-way deal down there in New York. So, but it's going to be a series where Vanderbilt's going to be playing with some desperation because now are they slipping out of the top 8 national seeds? We all know how important it is. Fans do, coaches do, players do. You don't have to have it, as Arkansas showed last year, but it sure makes things a lot easier. It sure makes athletic directors smile a lot more because they are making money with fans showing up there at the end of the year. So we'll see.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, the Stevie Nicks Billy Joel concert, is that going to be at Bridgestone Arena?
No, it's at Nissan Stadium.
Wow.
Outdoors. And the tickets that my son sent us, or our son sent us, say row 1, seat 7, seat 8.
Unreal. I mean, that is Billy Joel, I remember 7 years ago, he was at the Forum, the FedEx Forum in Memphis, and it was packed. And I'm trying to think, it was like 19,000 people on top of each other. We had phenomenal seats right up by the stage. And he talked about the 3 years when he was in Memphis a lot at Lafayette's Music Room in Overton Square. Mm-hmm. And Dudley, all the great sports writers typically know their musicians. They know their bands. And you had the Police used to play at the what they called East End Ballroom, now Minglewood Hall in Overton Square. So you'd have the Police, you had Billy Joel, and U2 would come to Memphis a lot. and they record at like Ardent Studios and some of these different places, Stax, Sun Records, and you'll be in Memphis sometimes and you'll just be out and you'll go, those guys look really familiar. I mean, you know, the black trench coats, the black pants, the boots, and it's Bono and U2. Stevie Nicks, my sister met her one time up when she lived in New York in the mid 80s. And she said, Stevie Nicks was a wild child. I mean, just unbelievable voice. But what gets me is how they take care of themselves to get to this point. Robert Plant's another one. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, I remember when I was, I believe, I want to say, 17 or 18, going to World Memorial Stadium watching the Doobie Brothers. And
yeah,
I was already sports editor of the Newport paper that summer, and got a chance to go backstage, which was really just back, past the end zone at that point, and saw Michael McDonald there, the lead singer of the Doobie Brothers, and he was just wasted. And I was telling the buddy who was walking around, I mean, well, they won't be able to perform. That dude, there's no way. Stage went on. I mean, the music went up. There he went. I mean, it was perfect. He was, I was thinking, how in the world could somebody do that? But that's what, that's how the artists are.
Yeah, it is. We're going to take a quick break, but that is, I think a lot of it's anxiety. That may be the reason why there's some of the, drugs and alcohol, whatever like that. I mean, my God, you've got every time you get out on stage, it's got to be better than the last time. And, it's incredible to see these Music Fest, Memphis in May, live at the Garden. You see Bonnie Raitt may be the greatest female vocalist I've ever seen in person. We'll be right back. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Dudley, looking at the list of schools in the portal, football, Arkansas is ranked, I think, 10th right now. I know in basketball, they had a really good haul. Your thoughts on the portal and what you've learned since October 15th of 2018. So we've got a little over 4.5 years of data. And is the lesson there, you might be just better off unless you're almost all but guaranteed a starting position if you move, just to stick it out and grind it out where you are. Because you know what? We had Nathan Perotti, who was a walk-on, football player at Arkansas. Dave Cody made that connection for us. Dave, longtime sports anchor at Channel 7 in Austin, Texas, knew him and his family from covering him at Travis or Westlake High School down there. And you talk about a good kid. He played defensive back for the Hogs and special teams and everything. And he had graduated. And, that kid, he's part of that Arkansas family for life. Even if he's not a starter, people will see that. And how hard it is. They will respect that.
Yeah, Nathan did a really good job as a punt returner when he was here, and also had a pick six against UAPB in World Memorial Stadium that was highly entertaining. You talk about the portal, I guess it's been great for the kids. They should have the opportunity to move just as coaches do. I'm for that. I still think that they're, and they've started to do, some restrictions. They had to decide by May 11th if they were going to leave their current school. And I'm sitting here looking at a list on the split screen here. Arkansas, after spring practice or during spring practice, there are 8 different guys that they've added since spring practice. And they all were at need positions: cornerback, safety, defensive tackle, linebacker. They basically went to Walmart and picked out all the positions that they needed, some that will provide depth, some that will provide instant impact. The situation with people, I don't want to say fleeing, but people leaving, and you've got to replace all the depth. They certainly the NCAA allowed them to get past the 25 this year because of, still things coming over from the pandemic, still things where you needed to help people who are in certain situations. But just like they added one yesterday, a defensive back, Chris Rose, and they added a kicker punter as well, who's going to be a walk-on. I mean, it's just daily that Otis Kirk, who's our football guy at Hogville, he's just writing something every day because there's either a different guy visiting, a different guy committing. They have one tight end that visited, committed, decommitted, visited somewhere else, then committed here again. So it's a daily thing. And I will say that, going into it, I saw some of them in spring practice. Obviously, a lot of, as I said, 8 that are coming here that weren't in spring practice. I will say that just from looking from the outside, and that's, that it appears that they have met needs. Now we'll see how that transfers to the football field. But I do think they needed to add some guys that could pressure the quarterback, that could stop the run on the defensive line. I think that they've potentially done that when you look at the guys. That they needed to put more people back in depth in the secondary. They've done that as well. And certainly they needed a few more tight ends. And now they've gotten that done because Dan Enos is going to play more 12 technique or more, than previously Kendall did here. So,
yeah. And it's going to be fun to watch. And there's a debate, who's got the best quarterback coming back in the SEC? KJ Jefferson, he's got a damn good track record. Jaden Daniels at LSU. Graham Mertz has got a lot of starts under his belt up at Wisconsin. And Wisconsin plays good football. They do. The Big Ten plays good. They do. But I'm still thinking KJ Jefferson of the returning quarterbacks and, is my best choice to help you win. And he and Jaden Daniels both can run the ball, but I still like KJ's arm.
I'm sitting here watching the NFL draft last week, and I know that KJ Jefferson is a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson was last year, and he is right now. Anthony Richardson, obviously a high draft pick. I think KJ is a better pick than Will Levis, better quarterback. So, as long as he stays healthy and things, go the way they're supposed to, he should have a big year, and then he should go on and get a chance to play in the NFL. Will he be a 10, 12-year star? That I don't know, but I've watched him from the time he was in the 11th grade develop as a quarterback, and it's just amazing how much better he's gotten.
Well, Dan Enos has a long history. He's been at Arkansas. He was at Alabama when Jalen Hurts was there, and he can develop quarterbacks. That's critical. Then you get offensive line depth. You know that Arkansas is always going to have a strong offensive line because Sam Pittman's the coach. And typically, if the head coach is an offensive guy, you're going to take care of offense. If he's defensive, it should be strong there. Look at Saban. Look at Chip Kelly all the years he had. Now Chip Kelly's finding success at UCLA. They won 9 or 10 games last year. But if I'm an Arkansas fan, I'm just elated that Dan Enos came back because that translates a lot.
And as we talked about, Brandon Allen was one of his developments that when he was here became a much better quarterback while he was here. And he's still in the NFL. He's Joe Burrow's backup. When you're Joe Burrow's backup, you don't get to play a lot, but he still
knows Joe Burrow.
Yeah, he's still cashing a check, and you know he'll going to get that 10-year pension or whatever it is, before too long.
Only 5 years you get it.
Gotcha.
I mean, the only reason I say that is I think it used to be 4 years, but that's why you see a lot of guys will play 5 years and say, "Man, I'm out of it. It's a collision league," But Dudley, looking at Arkansas on the football side, the first year of the pandemic, the lockdowns, the small crowds, that was just a miserable to have to not be able to go to the games. It was not fun. 21, they win those 9. Last year, they win 7. Last year, they lost the close games in a lot of cases that they won the year before. And here it is again. Their schedule's not going to be any easier. But they went on the road and beat BYU. That's a big deal for confidence. But you come back in the SEC, you can't – I don't think it's fair to say May 17th, it's hard. It's impossible, really, to pick their record. But what area do you see the most improvement on for Arkansas where they struggled the most last year as you head into the 23 season?
Well, I think it's going to be the defensive line. I think that's, the area that they really hit at the hardest. There were a lot of guys up front last year who held their own at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
They didn't push anybody back. They didn't put the pressure on the quarterback that they need to. We obviously know that Arkansas has some new defensive coaches here. They're going to be aggressive, do a lot more different things than Barry Odom did here to try to put pressure on the quarterback. And if you've gotten a secondary, and they certainly have added a lot of members to that, if you get a secondary you can hold up now, then you're going to be able to have more sacks, to have more pressures, really to create more chaos and panic among a quarterback. I sit here today and I look over that schedule and I think 7 wins is not the goal, but I think that's where the starting point's got to be. I think this football team, and I realize there are 12 games now, but you start at 7-5. I would be stunned if they don't win 7 games. I guess that would be what the Vegas guys call the over/under or whatever.
Yeah.
But with KJ at quarterback, with all that experience, with the running backs that they have, now that they've added, it seems like the tallest wide receiver crew in college football, and have, I think, I've said this before, Josh Browne transferred from Florida. I'm sure he's going to start up front. The 2 kids from Arkansas that were great 5-star guys that are now coming into their own. The offensive line is going to be fine. I suddenly see a lot more answers than I do questions here. All that being said, you when you go out to a football practice and you watch a team play itself, it always do great.
Yeah, it is. And Dudley, look, are you? I know I'd love for you to always stay on with us because Doug Dean, the AU Dawson Birmingham, is going to be on with us. But are you flying? Or are you driving up to Nashville here?
I'm driving, and I'm going to get off here in a minute. There are several bags over there that need to be loaded up, and it doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't have anything to do with the Celtics playing tonight at 7:30. They got Nashville. It's an 8-hour drive from my house, so we're gonna get after it. So. Yeah,
well, listen, man, Dudley, always love having you on, and it's so much fun because you can pivot, and I call you like a Swiss Army knife or a SEAL. You can your Razorbacks, but the Southwest Conference history. Before that, the Big 12. A lot, and then you've got your Celtics, your Cowboys, your Cardinals. I wish the Cardinals were doing better. But I tell you, the Redbirds here in Memphis, that's the AAA team, obviously. It's a Cardinals town, a lot of Braves fans, but the Cardinals still own Memphis and all.
And the Cardinals had won 4 in a row since we last talked. They went 7 of 9. They suddenly showed some life. Nolan Arenado's back at it, So I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm really trying my best to come out of my shell and not be so shy. So.
That's right. Look, tell people how they can follow you. And as always, we thank you for your time and have a safe trip up there to Nashville and have a great time at that concert.
Hogville.net is our message board, and obviously our website. That we'll have a lot of softball coverage. Arkansas hosting, is the 11th national seed, hosting the softball regional this weekend with a power packed. For Harvard, Oregon, and Notre Dame. Really, that's that'll get you some people out just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
I'll be at the as I said, the baseball series. Otis Kirk will be on different things, regarding football. But should be a fun weekend, as most are around here.
Oh yeah, Doug, go ahead. You had a question.
I'm sorry if Dudley has even 30 seconds. First, I enjoy your takes on the Hogs. One of my favorite fan bases to follow. They're so, I don't know, self-deprecating and hilarious handle names on the message boards. But my question is there excitement going into this year? I kind of see this Hogs offense really wanting to line up and mash you and run the ball. What are you expecting from this Hogs team this year?
A Sam Pittman team doing that? Yes. I think that there's a great possibility of that, and I do think because he lacks the offensive line guys that he's got here. We talked about the experience not being there, but he lacks the athleticism of that, and he's got some great running backs. He's got a quarterback, and suddenly again the tallest wide receiver core in the nation, and he now has more than 2 tight ends. A tight end commits every day here. So.
It's going to be a huge challenge for Hugh Freeze to have to go up to Fayetteville this year.
Should be a challenge for a lot of people, but anytime you go on the road, anytime Arkansas goes somewhere else, it's going to be a challenge as well. That's what this league is about, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. I write in this many teams is in the top of this poll. It's all time. Thank you, Frank Broyles, for making my sports writing career much better by switching out of the Southwest Conference to the SEC back there in the early 1990s.
Big Daddy lives on forever. All right, Dudley, man, have a great take some pictures, and I'm looking forward to the stories next week, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, take care. That is Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. Doug Dean, AU Dawson, Birmingham. Doug, there's a lot happening. And like Dudley said, Otis Kirk covers college football and recruiting for hogville.net. Said every day it's something. Somebody's visiting, somebody's coming and going. Transfer that over to Auburn, and it's busy, man. It's like going through Grand Central Station every day and every night.
Honestly, good morning, Rob and Audrey and whoever the 20-person team and your production crew there producing this great show. I don't, it seems like the last 3 years in order, we were obsessed unavoidably talking about pandemic and let's play ball. And the SEC showed some moxie and leadership. And then it quickly became all about the radical transformative changes of NIL and transfer portal. And that's starting to shake out. It's not any easier on these coaches. Case in point, and I'll use Bruce Pearl to make the point, but it really applies similarly to football. Bruce Pearl is now doing what he would normally have rather not, which is he will minimally sign a high school player. He needs to be a high 4-star like Aiden Holloway, a McDonald's All-American, and you hope you keep him 1 year before he's gone. But Bruce has said, it's the way it's become. I might as well let another program develop a guy, get some hair on his rear end for me, and go in the portal. And so that's what he's doing. I think you're seeing a lot of that in football. I am blown away, and any Auburn person should be, at the volume of experience flipping of this Auburn roster going from the Harsin era, tragic Harsin era, frankly, to what we have now. And, it sort of dawned on me when he landed not 1 but 2 transfers, coincidentally both from North Texas. And somebody wants to make light of a program like North Texas, be my guest, but there are good players that develop late and are at programs that Alabama just brought in a talented player from UAB, and Alabama doesn't have to go in the portal the way they recruit. But Jair Shorter, his wide receiver, and Larry Nixon, the linebacker, both yesterday. I was thinking a couple of weeks ago, frankly, I would have said, well, as an Auburn fan, I'm pretty happy with the talent Hugh has brought in, and we'll just live with what we've got. Hugh's not happy with it. He kept working the available talent, and not long before that, of course, everybody knows about Peyton Thorne, but the transfer commitment and signing of Thorne, no question, it had an impact on Auburn landing Caleb Burton, the talented wide receiver from Ohio State. And I have a funny feeling, provided he's healthy, there's not any lingering injuries, Burton and probably Shorter will, if they're not starters, they're going to get a lot of playing time. And you may see Ohio State fans saying, golly, why did we let Burton get away?
Yeah. All right, let's hold these thoughts through the break. As I come back, I want to go over some portal numbers and throw them at you and get your feedback. Doug Dean's with us out of Birmingham. AU Dose, right back after this. All right, Doug Dean, there in your beautiful home there in, as Billy Bob says, Vestavia. Hey, I'll never forget being in the Auburn University bookstore that time. And this guy was talking before the game. He goes, "Yeah, I look at old Paul Finnebaum on the TV." Finnebaum, God, I mean, how do you do it? But all right, Doug.
One of the best ways to insult somebody, especially celebrities, is to flagrantly mispronounce their name.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that guy could help himself. He looked pretty rough. But I want to throw some numbers at you. I looked in the portal. It's some great research done by Jason Caldwell and the folks at Inside the Auburn Tigers. 3 players were already in the portal before Freeze got there. 17 more since. Of those 20, it's been a windfall for UAB and Troy, and in the case of Zach Calzada, the quarterback, Incarnate Word, or Texas State getting TJ Finley, UNA, Jeffrey Mba, how he was the #1 junior college player in the country is amazing to me. Let me just, as a caveat to that, say, stop signing these kids that have a connection to France or the Congo. That's Jeffrey Mba and Johan Traore. I mean, that guy, he transferred to UC Santa Barbara. Okay, so you had Landon King went to Utah, Jeffrey Mba to Purdue. I think there's, out of those 20 that have left, maybe 2 or 3 have gone to Power 5 schools. Most of them are going down a level. When you see a guy go from a P5 to a P5, it's those top 8 schools are signing probably 70% of the top 100 players in the country. That's what's happening. So you've got your guys like a Joe Burrow, Jamison Williams, stacked up at Ohio State. And I hope Caleb Burton's the next former Buckeye who just was tired of being in the, in the log jam of talent. But I think the portal, and then on the other side, the group of 5 schools are becoming AA, AAA farm systems to the Power 5 schools. Am I?
Yeah. I like the way you put it. The whether the NCAA or leaders like Commissioner Sankey over the SEC are going to call it this.
Yeah.
As fans, we're pretty damn high Q, aren't we? And what I'm seeing is a very close emerging, evolving. It's like it started as an amoeba and it's taking shape now. We know what we're looking at. We have in some ways, the Major League Baseball version of minor leagues forming, in which there's going to be the group of 5 and other schools that play good football, and they create a lot of of juice and excitement for their fans on a given Saturday, because people love college football and tailgating and game day. But that's the, I hate the word minor leagues, but that's frankly, it's just going to be a developmental league, quote, league for the Power Five. And sure, there might be this kid that falls in love with Boise or whatever program he's at and really loves that institution and wants to graduate from there. But the portal's already proven that if you're a big name Power Five and you have a shot to make the playoffs, then you can pretty much go after, especially with NIL, you can go after any player in America, and your biggest competition is going to be that top 5 ranked Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, those guys that, can sell, hey, you might get to play in a national championship.
Yeah, and I think really if you're one of the 13 or 14 schools out of 131 Division I schools who've made the playoff in the first 9 years, that's like having the CFA, on your business card, or CPA or MBA. 4 schools each year are selected. It's about to go to 12. You automatically are going to get the attention of every high-profile player in the portal. And
yep.
I don't want to see, though, the group of 5 schools. I don't want to see them suffer. But the reality is, you just mentioned it. You were dead on. Well, you get the receiver from North Texas State. You got a linebacker, Larry Nixon III. Well, think about it in high school. You recruit kids from small schools. You recruit kids from schools that won 4 games, schools that won 12 games. It's all about that player and how he projects on that next level.
And I don't see why. Maybe there's a move afoot, but it would seem to me logical and create a lot of excitement and the ability realistically for Group of 5 to hoist a trophy and call it a championship, that there is a Group of 5 level national championship.
Yeah, Doug, I agree with you on that, because it's going to be for the Group of 5 schools. I mean, when we go to a 12-team playoff, though, you're going to see some of them probably make it. But I agree with you. It's almost like the NCAA basketball tournament and the NIT.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? It's more games. It's more experience.
Rob, I was going to I think one of the things that every reporter, the really talented sports writers across the U.S. and the beat writers that cover particular programs or conferences are thinking, what are the three or 4 or so most compelling college football stories this year? Here are my 4, and I'm going to stick to the Southeastern Conference because it's what your audience is the most interested in and engaged in. To me, you start with Georgia. Can Kirby Smart reload with the amount of talent he sent to the NFL? And I think it's hazardous to bet against him, if only because arguably he's only going to have to play a couple of real games regular season. And the first really serious threat, most likely, just because of Georgia's strength in the trenches, unless they stumble and have quarterback problems or whatever, or games where they uncharacteristically, turn the ball over. But it will be Alabama that likely comes to, unless LSU's the SEC West champion. So Kirby Smart, number 1. To me, second story, most compelling, is not Alabama, but Nick Saban. Does Nick Saban find a way to stop the Georgia Bulldog emerging dynasty? And that, I think, is not as far from a slam dunk if you look at the unknowns that Alabama's dealing with. Sure, they're 4 and 5 stars, but my good Bama friends who really follow it closely are concerned about players with talent, but that just are unproven, most especially at quarterback. Third would be most compelling story. What can Brian Kelly do? He's loaded with talent, and to me, Jaden Daniels is by far like a 20% better, more talented, more upside, more experienced QB than any that I've seen in the SEC. And lastly, I'm going to say, if you're limiting me to 4, Texas A&M and that Jimbo and Bobby Petrino marriage is going to be a really compelling and interesting story to follow as this season progresses.
Yeah, I think all four of those are really good candidates. And if there was a fifth one, it was, and I'd have to say this is,
Hugh Freeze.
well, no, it's Florida or Auburn. Which program's going to take the biggest leap this year? But I like your take on Texas A&M with Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher has always run things hands on, but if he's smart enough to let Bobby Petrino take over, and that's kind of like going into Gordon Ramsay's kitchen and telling him what to do. They could be really good. I think Bobby Petrino, I don't care what you think about the man, is one of the elite offensive coaches we've ever seen in the history of college football.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you stuck with Texas A&M because I look back to the presser Jimbo had following their spring game. You may have read about this. And he was a little, of course, Jimbo's kind of perennially easily triggered at times.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily all bad. That shows some moxie, some aggressiveness, some high testosterone of a competitor. But he was asked, Jimbo, how much different will this offense be? And he didn't particularly like the question. His answer was, we ain't worried. We're just working on base fundamentals. And and he had a similarly awkward answer to who's going to call the plays. Well, we'll go through that as we go along. Well, I don't think if I'm Bobby Petrino, that's too wishy-washy an answer about, we'll see if it's working, I'll let you keep calling plays. And I don't mean to put words in Jimbo's mouth, but what's going to be interesting is, to me, you're absolutely right that if you look at total resume, Bobby Petrino has been one of the genius offensive minds in the modern era. Here's, however, is my question, and it bears some, maybe I need to look back at Western Kentucky and his last stop. Has Bobby Petrino evolved his offensive philosophy to this modern era? Because if he hasn't, and he hasn't incorporated some RPOs and these new schemes that spread you out, like what I love what Heupel's doing with wide splits at Tennessee. Bobby's smart enough to do that, but will he do it, or does he kind of believe too much in what worked for him 15, 20 years ago? And then how does that align with what Jimbo Fisher wants to do? Because they could get one of these games where Connor Wegman's playing well. That's a talented kid. There's a reason he was a 5-star. That they're scoring well in the low 30s, but you're playing somebody that's going to get to 40. You better be able to score.
Yeah, well, you go back and pivot back to about 7 years ago when Alabama was scoring in the low 30s average per game, and they made changes, and all of a sudden they're scoring in the mid 40s. And so if you're going to beat Alabama, you better be scoring, more than 45 points. Well, last year, Nick Saban made a point. He was kind of a harbinger of things to come. He said Tennessee confused him. He said it's almost like you look out there, you don't know what they're doing, Josh Heupel, but you got about a 3-year shelf life of an offensive or defensive, mindset that you run. You better be changing it. And that's what you're talking about with Bobby Petrino. And with him is you better find a running game, because A&M, they've got a lot of Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com, is on the show with us a lot. He said last week, of that 30 players that have hit the portal from A&M, that recruiting class ranked the number one in the history of recruiting classes. February 22, he said even with the guys that have left, it was still ranked number one because there's still that many of them there, but it wouldn't be the greatest of all time. But if you can't run the ball, that's Bobby Petrino's got to find in his mind a healthy balance. Because if he's trying to do it his way or the highway, you could have a mess. And then that's not just at A&M. That happened anywhere.
Yeah. Are you close to break, or we got a minute?
No, we're good.
So kind of continuing your point, in case our Auburn friends are wondering, why are you talking about A&M? It's the time of year where it's useful and interesting.
Yeah.
On the SEC West opponents that matter, and can Texas A&M break through and be right there with LSU and Alabama contending deep into November? I don't know. I have my doubts about it because we would have seen it by now. But Petrino's potential X factor that could make a huge difference. I can tell you this, Connor, any quarterback that starts for Petrino is going to be mentally tough. He is not going to baby him in practice. So I think that may help Wegman. Or if Wegman made of the right stuff, it could hurt him when they get in a tough game. But back to what Jimbo's – this is a curious quote to me. When Gus Malzahn was in his latter twilight of days at Auburn and the fans had enough, one of the worst things Gus said after bad games, the offense was dysfunctional. He would say, we just need to execute better. And fans are smart. No, we need a better offensive line. If they're bad and they're not going to get better, that executing is impossible. So what Fisher said after that spring game was, he said, a counter is a counter run play. A dig and post is a dig and post. It's just all about executing. Now that if he means that in the same way that Gus meant it, like the problem is not my system or play calling and the talent we put together and the way we do strength and conditioning, it's just players not executing. That's not going to bode well for the Aggies when they get in the tough games.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And if you're saying that in your 7th and 8th year of coaching, we got to execute better. No, it's because in that 4-year cycle of offensive linemen, I think Georgia signed 19, LSU 18, Alabama 16, and Auburn 12. And most of those guys were left, and then Auburn had to switch guys from defensive line to offensive line. It's really hard to do that. But
meanwhile, you're sitting there. If you're the brain trust in College Station, Jimbo they still would owe in the neighborhood of $84 million, Rob.
Yeah, I think once the season gets cranking up, it's in the 70s. It's a real bargain. But when are people going to learn?
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that Charlie Weiss taught Notre Dame that when they got excited about those. Well, yeah, you had Brady Quinn as your quarterback, and they signed him to that 10-year deal. The only worse contract I can think of is that grant of rights deal, that the indentured servant contract that the ACC has to ESPN. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, obviously with Coach Sherrill when he's on. You're going to stay on for some of that. But I want to say this about Hugh Freeze. He is obsessed with getting better talent.
Yeah.
18 now players signed in the portal. And of the 20 that have left, God love them, I know their parents do, they're going out. But for everyone that he's lost, look what he's bringing in.
And Rob, I tell you, with every passing week, and it's not just the recruiting, that's at the top of the list, as I wrote yesterday on how Hugh Freeze has won over, in my opinion, I probably shouldn't say 100%. There's always that outlier, 90% of the Auburn fan base, but he's doing talent acquisition, but he's also saying the right stuff. And boy, is it just me, Rob, but week by week, he feels like a perfect fit with the Auburn family.
Well, that's why when Lane Kiffin was the front runner, I said, I talked to way too many people that know a lot more than I do. And they said, look, y'all are not going to like him. He'll go to the beach for a week or 2 weeks to Boca Raton. He doesn't want to go to those alumni functions. He's not into all that Toomer's Corner and all your traditions. Auburn people want to coach at 4:30 in the morning. They can be laying in their own bed, but they know our coach is down there recruiting and they're getting ready. And they're trying to get better. He is the perfect fit. He loves everything that is Auburn, and he's from North Mississippi. He's from Independence, Coldwater, Senatobia. Can't go wrong with that. We'll be right back with Doug Dean.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Doug Dean of the AU Dawson. Yeah, Hugh Freeze, he's a great fit for Auburn because he's a workaholic in terms of he's committed to making the product better. And he, I think, enjoys, when you see him out in public, he enjoys being a football coach. I mean, he's been at Ole Miss. Some things happened there. He was out of coaching. He got back at Liberty. So guys like that tend to really appreciate, sometimes you're on a roll and then you lose something and then you work hard to get it back. You're much more appreciative than you ever were. So he's the right guy at the right time in the right place.
And it's so refreshing to see a coach that has a firm grasp on reality. And the reality here in the Deep South, Rob, and you know what I'm referring to comparatively. The reality in the Deep South is, sure, it's nice, and you better be great at coaching them up, developing schemes, strategies, specific, bold, creative game plans. Especially when you're going into a game, an underdog like that. I'll never forget Kevin Steele's plan going to Baton Rouge when LSU in 2019, as hot as they were, and that weird front that Steele used almost beat LSU, almost beat them. If we get a couple of breaks in the game, but the reality is, you correlate almost at a 95th percentile level. It correlates with talent acquisition and key playmakers, and especially in the trenches, defensive front, offensive line. If you've got that and some other playmakers, you're in the game. And then the coaching, to me, coaching impacts about 20%, a critically important 20% of who wins or loses. And the rest is like players on the field, not blowing the game, not giving it away, valuing the ball and making big plays and doing things on the field that you don't have time to coach. The bullets are flying, and then ball players become ball players, and it's fun to watch.
Well, it is. And you look at a lot of coaches, they don't like the limelight. Well, that's a big part of it. And every school is different. And you can tell with Hugh Freeze, he enjoys the passion of his fan base. And he had that at Ole Miss, but he'll tell you, man, the scrutiny like that you're under and here it's unbelievable. And I know they built him a nice big house up at Liberty, but he's got probably a bigger house down at Auburn.
And before Jackie joined, Coach Sherrill, excuse me, Doug, to you, I'm Coach Sherrill, not Jackie. Catch myself there with some good manners, but for a legend like Coach Sherrill. But just to the most fresh news coming out of Lee County and Auburn is the two wide receivers, Caleb Burton a week or so ago and Jair Shorter. But I had a coach, he's a high school coach, a veteran, I can't name him, who talks frequently to this Auburn staff, Rob, and he's kind of Auburn friendly, not in an unfair way, but he said the Auburn coaches believe that Shorter, who, by the way, was first in the nation with a 27-yard per catch average, which is insane. And that I don't care what level you're playing at, that stat doesn't lie. You got to go up and beat the defender and catch the ball 27 yards. So what Auburn has really missed lately is a deep threat. And this coach told me that Shorter is likely to be the best deep threat Auburn's had in years. Tracks the ball well when it's in the air. That's a big deal. And then high points it. And then at linebacker, Keys that Freeze brought in, new linebacker Nixon, are both expected to start. Keys at Mike, Nixon at the will linebacker. And then you still got guys like Wesley Steiner in there that are going to compete. So Hugh sees the weakness, fixes the weakness. And, I think he might have just elevated Auburn's potential. Auburn is playing, Rob, 3 potential playoff contenders: Georgia, Bama, LSU. You kidding me? So it's not fair to expect, a 10-win season when you look at that. Stranger things have happened, but that means you got swing games like the 2 Mississippis, Arkansas, and the Aggies, and that'll decide is it a 7-win season, which is pretty darn good, or can Hugh Freeze somehow pull off an 8 or 9-win year?
Yeah, it is, and Coach Sherrill is on the line with us right now, and Coach Jackie Sherrill here with us right now. And first off, Doug and Matt, you probably saw it last week. Coach Sherrill is one of the inductees into the 2023 Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. So again, Coach, for a man born in Duncan, Oklahoma, who played for the Crimson Tide and is a Hall of Fame coach, man, congratulations. I bet this is a big honor for you. Whoop. Coach, you there?
Muted.
Muted.
Okay. Coach, yeah, unmute yourself. I think you got it on mute. Coach, yeah, make sure he's unmuted on there. Yeah. Okay. Coach, can you hear us? Okay. All right. Okay. He's got a bad connection. He'll get that on here with him in a second. But, speaking of that, the Hall of Fame, Roman Harper, one of our guests, he's also been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Carlos Dansby, Doug, Woodlawn High School. So it's just
hold on, Carlos is going to be inducted.
Yeah, Carlos, I've got
who can forget that pass or that ball out of bounds and he tips it back into another defender?
Yeah. Well, and bottom line is, that was the North Carolina game in the Peach Bowl in 2001, and Matt, Carlos Dansby at the time was a defensive back. For Auburn before he switched to linebacker. I think he played wide receiver, defensive back, and then Gene Chizik convinced him to switch to linebacker. But that was a hell of an honor. Doug, Matt got to do one of the fun things that any athletic director, administrator does. You traveled with the women's lacrosse team from Rhodes. I know last Friday y'all flew, thank God it wasn't a bus ride, up to upstate New York. How did that go?
Good to see you guys, Doug. It's been a while, but I hope you're well. It was tremendous. We were able to win our first game and had an opportunity to play number 2 team in the country. Lost on Sunday, but a great trip for our ladies. And when you're rewarded with postseason play, that's really the epitome of why these kids do it, right? Just to see the looks in their faces after winning a game in the NCAA tournament on Saturday. Weather was great. But it was a tough ride. We flew from Atlanta to Buffalo, then bus to Geneva on Thursday, came through 2 different planes coming back on Sunday, Charlotte, Atlanta, back to Memphis. And it's good to be back, but it was a great trip.
Yeah. Well, think about that in the College World Series or the NCAA baseball tournament. God, you're flying all over the country. I don't think people really appreciate it. Coach Sherrill's working through some technical minutia right now. I think he'll be with us here because there's a lot I want to talk to him about, guys, and that is the future of college football. We Matt, Doug and I have talked a lot about the portal today and where the players are coming from and how it's working out for schools. And then again, we know a lot about what's happening with the ACC. And Coach Sherrill, can you hear us now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Okay, we got it worked out.
And you guys are too sophisticated IT-wise.
I don't. If you met us, you would say not so fast.
Hey, Coach Sherrill, Doug Dean in Birmingham. I just want to tell you how it was long overdue for you to be named and this, I guess, this weekend inducted into the Alabama State Hall of Fame, and it was almost already a travesty that you were not already in it. But at least you're still living, right, Coach?
Yeah, that's right. The great thing about it is I got to see a lot of my former teammates. Of course, quite a few of them are not here now, but there were, I think, 14 or 15 former teammates and 9 former coaches that are in the Hall of Fame. So, but I will say this, I've had the opportunity from the East to the West Coast to North, South to be at a lot of Hall of Fame inductions as a guest and as a member. But this was the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame is by far number 1 in the country.
Wow, that's good to hear. And Coach, no speech honoring you would be complete if it didn't comment and capture the phenomenal gutty move you made, which I just saw recently on I guess it was a 30 for 30 about the 12th man. That guts. Were you mentally stable, Coach? And I say that tongue in cheek, when you decided to go that balls to the wall using audition walk-ons. Were you stable, Coach?
Well, my coaching staff didn't think so, and RC asked me if I fell off that stack. That's the bonfire stack. Asked me, did you fall off that stack, Coach?
It was amazing. And you understood the power of generating emotion in college football, Coach.
Well, I wish I could take credit for knowing exactly how strong that was or what it meant to the student body at Texas A&M. But when it started, it completely erupted the student body to get involved because it was one of them, their dorm mate, their classmate, their drinking buddy or dating buddy. I mean, it had a big impact on the student body to be there and be part of the game.
And you didn't make exceptions just because you were playing a big game, right, Coach?
No. If you were on the team, of course, you have to understand that when we started, there were 252 that signed up, and 2 females, by the way, signed up to be a part of the team. And we whittled that down to 40. They came out to spring practice, and then we whittled that down to 20 for the fall. But every day, 4 days a week in pads back then, they had 30 minutes before practice with open field tackling and 30 minutes after practice covering kickoff. So you had one team, a kickoff team, in which we had 20 players that were doing nothing but covering kickoffs for 1 solid hour or practicing. That's 4 hours a day, and most people practice kickoff coverage on Thursdays on just with shoulder pads for 10 or 15 minutes at the most, maybe not even 10. So I knew I could take athletes.
Coach? Yeah. Coach, you there? Yeah. Oh, I think he may have muted himself. But I'm hearing him say this about how much time they spend on special teams. You're right. 30 minutes is a lot for some schools in today's world. And Coach, jump back in when you may have had a lost connection. He'll do it. But and the bottom line is special teams, Doug. You know this. About a third of every game. And if you don't have that down, how many times have you seen games lost? I mean, Florida State, it's a curse. And Coach, what you're saying about the special teams at Texas A&M in today's world, we've gone 180 degrees.
Oh, no question. And I'm going back to what Coach Sherrill did at Texas A&M. I don't know if it was the first game he fielded that kickoff coverage team with all walk-ons, all 12th man. But I believe it was an early game, and it was a big game. And he opens the game with an onside kick attempt, which I think failed, but it was the excitement that mattered. And pretty amazing. And actually some of the players that by the time they made it through that audition and winnowing process were pretty good players, and they played with a vengeance. It almost became an intimidating factor to the receiving kickoff team they played.
All right. Coach, are you back with us? Yeah. I think he's having some issues with the connection. Coach, just jump back in here because make sure you're not muted on the connection. That would be the only thing I can think of. But I'm with you, Doug. Okay. Coach, are you back with us? Yeah. Well, okay. Matt, along the lines of what we're saying about special teams and all, that 12th man at Texas A&M, you've seen that 30 for 30 on ESPN. They were taking a bunch of guys, kind of like, who was the field goal kicker for was it for the Eagles? Tim Mazzetti, that was the bartender. I mean, yeah. You were going out there and getting some guys and it was a lot of fun watching that happen. But Matt, would you have tried something like that if you were a coach? I think it did take took a big pair.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would have had the guts, so to speak, to do that. But look at the tradition it's created, and to this day, Rob and Doug, I've had the chance to go down to A&M and watch games at Kyle Field with my son being on staff for a few years on the personnel recruiting side. They have so many wonderful traditions there. All SEC venues are special, but just going to Kyle Field and all the things that are tied in there, from the 12th man, to some of their traditions during the game and halftime with the pride, the marching band, the Texas A&M Aggie marching band. I mean, it's just tremendous, and it's what makes college football, because you wouldn't see that anywhere else. And I think it was very courageous what Coach did, and just well deserving of all of his accolades. One of my favorite coaches from afar to watch. Everywhere Coach Sherrill went, he just made a great program. And
I'll say this, and you can't always just replicate the past. There's probably an Auburn fan around you could find that thinks that we should go back to the wishbone like Dye did in '83. It would be problematic. But I do wonder if sometimes Jimbo Fisher's the missing ingredient in the soup is he strikes me as kind of a robotic coach at times. Yeah, I've seen him get fiery, but he's got his system and he keeps working it. Given that fan base, are there some things that Jimbo Fisher could do, not just 12th man approach, but to inject some real fire and emotion both in the fans and in his team? I don't have anything particular in mind, but I do think that's a step that Fisher needs to figure out how to take.
Hold those thoughts, though. We're going to come right back after the break. I agree with you, and I want to get Coach Sherrill's thoughts on that. Matt Dean, Doug Dean, Coach Jackie Sherrill, right back after this. All right, Rob Browne back here with Matt Dean. Doug Dean had to get back to his other career there in Birmingham. Coach Jackie Sherrill will be with us here momentarily. From I guess Coach lives out in Wimberley, Texas, which is between San Antonio and Austin. But Doug, going back last night, I was watching ESPN late, and the 150 years of college football. That was a really good documentary ESPN had. I think the executive producer may have been Ivan Mazel. We had him on the show like about a year and a half ago. Really, really good. I mean, it was a great broadcast that they had on there. And when we watched this, it was incredible. You just said it. Only in college football, the bands, the rituals, Clemson running down the field and rubbing the Frank Howard rock. You know, you pick your school, you've all got your traditions. Some of them might be a little bit eccentric or quirky, but those traditions, the eagle flying around the field before an Auburn football game, the elephant blasting its trumpet, at Alabama. That one not so great, but when they got Coach Bryant up there talking about, this is Alabama football and talking about, his kind of pregame mindset, Tennessee forming the giant T. There's just nothing like that except on the college level.
Rob, I can remember back being a youngster. It's 1979, growing up in Iowa, and Iowa football had not been very good at all. And when Hayden Fry came to Iowa City, the native North Texan, and came in and said, "We're going to scratch where it itches." A lot of us kind of laughed. It was a nice, catchy phrase, right? And then you look at his career and what he accomplished with the multiple Rose Bowls, multiple bowl games. Chuck Long was a runner-up to Bo Jackson in the Heisman Trophy race. I know he didn't win it, but Chuck Long, quarterback for University of Iowa, it was part of Hayden Fry's offensive scheme. Iowa, in the last 45 years, has had 2 head football coaches. Hayden Fry, and then his successor was Kirk Ferentz, who's had a nice career there as well. And the reason I mention that ties back into what you're talking about is obviously the SEC is the football capital of the world right now. Many, many reasons. But the beauty of college football is that everybody embraces it. Everybody looks forward to talking about their team in August. Everybody looks forward to the first few games. Yeah. Even teams that don't compete for national championships. You have fan bases that travel to watch these 8-4, 7-5, even 6-6 teams play. To me, there's nothing like it when you get a great crowd and a competitive football game. Yeah. And a lot of times we take for granted how hard it is to build that product. And, having Coach Sherrill on your broadcast today, you look at what he's done and the unbelievable talent that he's, not only coached but developed. Yeah. That's why we embrace it. We love the great stories, and his story, what he did with the 12th man. I mean, that lives on in infamy. I mean, it's just one of the neatest things you could ever talk about.
Yeah, it is. Coach, jump back in here when you can. I know we're having some technical issues, but let me know if you're here. Coach, can you hear us? Okay. It may be the mute button. We're trying to get that worked out, but I'm with you. I mean, you name it, it doesn't matter. There's 131 Division I colleges. There's Group of 5. There's Power 5. What I love is the fact that no matter where you go, if you go to Wyoming up there, they care about their football. It's just, I think it's just some places they care more year round, but that's what makes the college game so important too, is because it's so personal. When you lose a game, you feel like, you're out in public naked, your clothes were taken away from you. Like everybody's pointing at you going, "Oh my gosh, they lost." Coach, jump in when you can at any time, because I know you were having some issues with the connection, but jump on in here at any time.
Rob, see how that's crossed out?
Yeah.
He's
Okay, Coach, if you'll unmute the on the screen there, just unmute yourself where we can hear you. Your connections, I can tell, is good, but just take that mute button off and everything will be good. But around the country, that's it. And you look at any documentary on the history of college football. I mean, that documentary about Sewanee going back to 1899. You know, that football field that they play on is the oldest football field in continuous use, 130 plus years. That's pretty cool. And I know you've been to it.
Yeah.
Up on the mountain. I mean, that's a cool setting for college football. I mean, that's what makes. And you talk about Iowa. I guarantee you this: football is important to those people up there.
Oh, it is.
It is very important. I mean, I remember watching Hayden Fry. I mean, he's a Texas native when he came there. Now, he's out of the coaching tree. Is Bill Snyder out of his tree?
He is. Bill Snyder was on his staff when he first came to Iowa. And then obviously Bill Snyder had a very successful career at Kansas State. Barry Alvarez was under his tree, who ended up having a tremendous career at Wisconsin. There are others too. You know, Bob Stoops, who played for and was under Hayden Fry's coaching tree. So it's pretty impressive. And I always get a chance when I talk football and we go back historical, I always mention Hayden Fry because I know the impact that he has still left on the Iowa football program to this day. And, you know, everyone has really been impressed in Iowa with what Kirk Ferentz has done. But if you had to give me the one person that is responsible for Iowa being as competitive as they've been in football, and I'm not saying as a national Final Four figure, I get that, but Hayden Fry resurrected Iowa football, and the fans are still forever indebted for him. They're still, even after his death, we have the Fry Fest that honors him, and he still has some family members that still show up to that. So Iowa is no different than some of these other towns in August and September, Rob. They're hungry and they're passionate for good football. And they're actually excited again because they think they found a quarterback, Cade McNamara, who 2 years ago led Michigan to the Big Ten championship, is now through the portal, is Iowa's starting quarterback. So it'll be interesting if the Hawkeyes can, win the West this year in the Big Ten. Yeah,
it will be. Coach, if you work it out, just jump in. If not, we'll get you on another day this week. But if you're there, we're wide open. But I think we just got one of those deals where we just got a technical issue. We'll work through that. But look, we got a lot to talk about, and we'll get Coach Sherrill rescheduled for another day this week. We'll make that happen. I'll go back now, Matt. Let's go back to this story on the ACC. You know, there's all these stories coming out, and Brandon Marcello's done a really good job of putting content out about what's happening. The athletic director from Florida State came out and said, hey, we're happy being in this league. All this stuff about us not being happy is a bunch of drama. It's overblown. Well, that story came out about Virginia Tech, Virginia, North Carolina State, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami, the Magnificent Seven or whatever they call themselves. Well, Clemson and Florida State, especially with football, feel like they're bringing in a larger portion than anybody of football revenue. I saw a proposal last night, Matt, that they would get an extra $10 million for what they do for football. But can't you incentivize it and say, hey, man, any team that makes the college football playoff in this conference, you're going to get $10 million. Because it may not be, it could be NC State. I mean, it could be Miami. You never know.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, Rob. I think you really offered a solution that I would say would work if I'm Mac Browne and North Carolina has a special year. why can't we be that team? Like a bonus clause, right? I mean, I would think, from an equity inclusion standpoint, that would be the way to go. And, with Mario Cristobal working down at Miami now, he's a tremendous recruiter. You tell me Miami in a couple of years doesn't have a shot at that. I mean, I'm a little shocked. It's kind of like pounding on your chest. Hey, we're the two alphas, and Clemson has been in football. Let's be honest. I mean, they have been. Florida State finally looks like they're an upward trending stock, but first year Norvell was there was talk that Dion was going to replace him, right? So it's not like, since the glory days of Bobby Bowden and then Jimbo Fisher's run there, they've taken a hit in terms of their notability in college football. So I'm a little shocked that this is happening.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this. That first year when Norvell was there, that Dion, I'm not sure how much Florida State fans, Johnny Ballpark Franks is on this show a lot. He'll be back on again soon. And he's a Florida State alum. He knew Bobby Bowden very well. He's not, by any stretch of the imagination, Johnny Ballpark Franks is not a fan of Deion Sanders.
Right.
And I'll say this about a lot of fan bases fans like to make themselves sound really powerful when they say, 6 games into your first year as a coach. Well, look, Matt Dean, he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah.
Listen, if those people were my clients and they acted that way 6 weeks into us putting together a portfolio and doing all the due diligence, I'd be like, let me send you your ACAT form, your account transfer form. You can't be that way. Yeah, I know it's frustrating, but Frank Broyles was right when he told Tim Horton, our friend at Arkansas, who's now at the Air Force Academy, and his father, Harold Horton, both coached at Arkansas. He said, if you've made the wrong hire, and you've made the wrong hire, it doesn't matter how early it is, you got to get rid of them. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes. That happened. I got to tell you, I have to think twice now before I order a baked potato after the Brian Harsin experience. It's just not the same. But Matt, I'm going to tell you what. I can't wait to meet Tyler, your son. Is he as big guy as you are? You're 6'3", 6'4". You played basketball. You were a manager at Drake, but did Tyler play at Christian Brothers?
Tyler was actually kind of a late bloomer. He played all three, football, baseball, basketball, all the way up, and then kind of focused on baseball at Christian Brothers, and then ended up, helping out with basketball in a manager capacity. And then, quite frankly, Christian Brothers has their second team in baseball can be their own entity. So, for Tyler now being at Oregon, it's just been a blessing for us to see him in his career. We're actually, excited he's coming in town for this weekend for a family friend's wedding. But like his passion, of what he does from football, you have to have that 24/7 if you're working for these guys like Kirby Smart, Pam Lanning, Nick Saban. It's kind of like what you do, Rob, on steroids, except at least Saturday, Sunday, you don't have to necessarily do what you're doing Monday through Friday sometimes, right? So you're still doing some things. It's a nonstop situation.
Yeah, and it is that way on the financial advisory side. You're always. My cell phone number is on all my business cards, and it never stops. And this job, the show, it's a passion. I never felt like it's a day of work in my life. You're talking with your friends and your guests who become your friends about sports. I mean, what's not to like? It's we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. And don't forget that, folks, coming up Memorial Day weekend. That's what we celebrate, is those people that have laid it all out on the line for us. They laid it out on the line for each other. And we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We're so blessed. I mean, a little update here on Christian Brothers from our good friend David Aquadro and Tom Dorian. The Christian Brothers, the Purple Wave, play Lipscomb tomorrow night.
Baseball, yep.
Okay, in the sub-state at 6:30. Okay. That is, wow. That is tonight. There will be tailgating behind the left field fence before the game. I plan on going and tailgating. Now, if we're still in Memphis today, I want to go out to that game. But you drive down Walnut Grove and you see 14 state championships for CVHS and about 15 or 20, runner-ups. You're right. Buster Kelso built a dynasty there. Now you've got a new coach. Here they go again. This guy that's the coach played at Christian Brothers. If I'm not mistaken, played for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Jason Mott, just tremendous pitcher. I've had the pleasure of meeting Coach Mott. Wonderful man. He was a heck of a pitcher in the MLB, and they're not that far away from another state title, Rob. I think if they win tonight, they would be in the Final Four, I believe.
Yeah. So, look, a tradition, the thing about tradition is every time you go out on the field, every time you wake up in the morning, you got to do it again and again. It just becomes your way of life. I mean, they with winning. And again, folks, sorry about the technical issues with Coach Sherrill. A pterodactyl stepped on the power line out there where he is, but he will be back with us. Absolutely love it. I want to get his thoughts. Again, we will reschedule him, talking about the future of college football. But, Matt, again, right now what's going on with the ACC? And the SEC is about to have their spring meetings.
Yeah.
I think the ACC schools each received about $36 million. I mean, it's not like they're, impoverished, okay?
No.
And so, but we want college sports on all levels to be successful. I want to see it because you are teaching valuable, they're priceless, the lessons that you're teaching. You just got to go on that road trip with the women's lacrosse team from Rhodes. Now they're finishing up school, so they're not studying for a calculus test or, studying for, a term paper or trying to get ready. They're student athletes, but that's what they are. They are student athletes. Got a proposal I'm going to give you right after this on the future of what we could do to make college sports better.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, back with Matt Dean, Rhodes College. I like that. Rhodes basketball, is that baseball?
No, that's basketball. That's old school.
That's what I'm saying. I like that. I like it. All right. Right now, with NIL being what it is, I got a proposal. Why don't we just have like they're doing in basketball, and I don't know what this development league's going to do, but for the kids that all they want is just to go to the NFL, they have no interest in going to school. And why even bring them there if they're not serious? Put them in a developmental league that the NFL could subsidize. And then bring the real student athletes back into college. Because what the fans are not going to support, it's unsustainable, the current NIL model. I'm going to tell you right now, Matt, you're a coach, you're an administrator, you've got contacts all over the country. You got a son on the staff at Dan Lanning at Oregon. And I hear from coaches that I talk to, OTR, off the record, for those of you that may be challenged, they despise NIL because they're going, look, I'm a coach. And Matt, you know how much time you spend putting together game plans and rosters and development. And then you got kids coming in there playing you off of this school or that school for more money when they hadn't done anything. It's like you trying to go get a raise at work and you're not producing anything. You're not bringing in any business. Get out of here. So let's decide, because I'll tell you right now, there are some people that are doing NIL. There are. But it's not sustainable. And if we want to, I think people want to see that they want to, it's all relative. If everybody that's there is committed, like I'm staying for at least 3 years or 4 years. If you all you want to do is play in the NFL, do these guys really care about college? We got to decide that, okay? Because right now, you've got almost as many guys leaving your school at most places as you got coming in. That's tough. We need stability is what we need. Your thoughts on that, Coach Matt Dean?
You put a lot on the table there, Commissioner Browne.
Here we go.
Let me see if I can unwrap most of it. Number one, obviously with looking at Major League Baseball and what the NBA has done in the G League, you raise a good point about a developmental football league. But we also could say for a little older group, that's happening right now with this whole XFL, USFL, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying right now, these 18 to 21-year-old kids that some of them are going to college and maybe not going to class like they should, and maybe not degree seeking like we think they are. It's an interesting thought. It needs funding. It needs a commissioner to run it. You also have a situation where the majority of that group is not of age. They're not even legal to have for a good reason, a sip of alcohol, right? I don't know how you pull it off without big time funding from the NFL, but it's a great thought. Number two, to our current state of college football. Okay. You are seeing teams invest their time into the portal, flip rosters. Okay. Yeah. You're seeing, I think there was maybe correct me if I'm wrong, don't shoot the messenger here, over 10 teams that had 30 plus defections or more into the portal and then also flip their roster back with 30 entries, right? Yep. So it was almost like Power 5 football now has their own free agency. Is that a fair statement? They are able to go out and find a need in the portal. And some of them are former 5 stars, 4 stars, right? Now, there's also another unique group out there. Some of these kids from Rhode Island, Oregon just signed an East Carolina University lineman 2 days ago that was doing well and developing in East Carolina. Now he's going to finish career at Power 5. So if you're not working the portal right now, you're not going to be as successful with just 4-year kid philosophy, because you're going to lose some of your kids that are going to go leave for the better NIL deals, right, Rob? And I'm not sure I like the current state of college football, but I don't know how we change it unless there's some serious modifications from college presidents. College presidents are the ones they're going to have to change this, in all honesty.
They are. And what I'm saying is there are a lot of guys that are there that are playing college football on the Power 5 level, Group of 5 level, that are absolutely serious about getting their education.
They are. Majority of them are.
Yeah, the majority. I agree with you. And that's where I'm going to make sure I say that. I'm not saying it just to cover my butt, but I'm saying that's what I really believe that, because too often people think they're not. But the ones that just all they care about is if when they're talking to the coach and saying, hey, what are you going to give me in NIL? That's the dreaded, ask. That's the ask. The coach is like, look, man, even Deion Sanders, who started all this NIL in reality, guys, back in 1987, 88, pulling up to games in a limo and prime time and all that stuff. Now he doesn't like it. Well, I know people, you read old sports writers' stories talking about interviewing Deion Sanders. He was just all about Deion Sanders. That's all he cared about. Granted, I understand that, but college and being on a team, you're learning lessons like there's some things in life bigger than you. As Shug Jordan used to say at Auburn, and Pat Dye used to love to say the same thing. He goes, as great as you may be as a player, as a coach, whatever, ain't none of us bigger than Auburn. And you can apply that to any school out there. That's absolutely because when I'm down at Auburn, when I'm on this show, we're so blessed to have this platform to reach a lot of people, and we're growing it. You talk to coaches, sports writers, current players, former players, current and former coaches, media people, you realize how many people it takes that are behind every great player. There's always been a motto in the Marine Corps. It's a 7-to-1 ratio. For every Marine out there on the front line in combat, there might be 6 or 7 people in support behind them.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it. And where I see college football, where we can fix this is we just got to decide. And Matt, would you be in favor of a total revenue sharing model? Like you stay here for once you get your degree from this school, you can participate. You're fully vested in our plan, profit sharing, ESOP, whatever you want to call it. What about that? You stay here. Okay, you transfer, you forfeit your rights. You could be here 3 years, you transfer, you're not vested. You're not going to get that pension. I think that would be better because we all know, like Charles Barkley said, the big uglies, big offensive linemen, they're not getting what the quarterback or wide receiver are. And that's capitalism. I get that. But these are college kids. Coaches, I've lost track of the number of coaches who've told me they started out making $12,000 or $15,000 a year coaching. Yeah, they eventually got into that big money. But Matt, you ever coached a pre-med student that was a sophomore or a junior? Would you want them to do your heart surgery if you needed it? They can't do it till they graduate from medical school. Football players, 18, 19 years old, you ain't done a damn thing. And if you think this university, well, think about what the university is providing you with. It works both ways. And there needs to be a lot of fight back from university administrators, which I'll be excited when I see that. Instead of hiding in the president's mansion or whatever, they need to be out on the front line. Matt Dean, you are going to be the commissioner. You are Rick Neuheisel. Rick Neuheisel's already told me he would do it for college athletics.
Listen, Rick would be a great person to lead the charge.
And Rick.
I'm all for it. The thing that gets sticky is, now we've turned these student athletes into employees. They're not necessarily just students, they're employees. So Rob, you're in the business world. I'm not. So, there's a lot of other ramifications that go along with that, in terms of the state laws, also, the tax laws. And, we have, even at a place like Rhodes, we have FTE requirements in terms of balance. What happens when we have more employees on the men's side than the women's side? I mean, we have to concern ourselves with equity and inclusion. There's a lot of things, Rob, that there has to be a summit and some kind of model that's presented. And I go back to the college presidents. I don't want to spoil the party. They're the ones that are the head of the chain. It's not the football coaches. It's not the athletic directors. It's the college presidents that are going to have to approve this model. And then you have the state legislatures that are going to tell you, well, you can or can't do this, right? I mean, it's very tricky. And that's why we've delved into a situation where it's out of control. And certain people are doing it well, certain people aren't doing it.
Yeah. And what I would also say is your boosters, your people that support the universities.
Yes.
They have a lot of power. If your board of trustees, board of regents, presidents, chancellors, whatever, get everybody on the same page. Again, pro sports are fun, but that's why they play them on Sunday. They play college football on Saturday. And again, I'm against anything that makes college sports more like pro sports. The part about the money, what's happened is we've allowed the group of attorneys that latched on to Ed O'Bannon from UCLA because he got his feelings hurt about his image being used on a video game. Well, I understand, but we've allowed this narrative to be shoved down our throats, and there's no credit, no credence given to all the embedded gains, like embedded capital gains on a fund that you buy into. Hundreds of years, many of these universities have been around. So when you come there, hey, you're not the first person to come to school here.
No.
You're not the first person to play football or basketball here. And Matt, you know, as a coach, if you got someone you coached 10, 15, 20 years ago, and she came to you and said, hey, coach, they're still going to call you coach till the day you're gone. They'll always do it.
It's my doctor title, coach. That's right.
That's right. That's right. And you earned it. But they're going to come to you. They may say, Coach, this is, Elizabeth, my husband and I and our 4 kids. I like big families, big Catholic families. Let's make it 8 kids. We're moving back to Memphis. I've got this great job with St. Jude or Le Bonheur. I'm going to be working for FedEx. I need your advice, man. Where should we live? Where should we move to? Hadn't been to Memphis in a while. Is there any crime there? I don't know if there is.
They're not informed, are they, Rob? They are not informed.
She's totally clueless. She's been living in a cave in Carlsbad Caverns. I don't know. But they're going to come to you. But if it was a kid that you coached that was just a horrible discipline problem, quit and came back, quit and came back, quit and came back, and always, you're not even going to want to take that call. And these people need to think about that. That's why Coach Sherrill, the memories and the bonds that he has with his teammates.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the guy's 78 years old. He's amazing. But that, again, my dad at age 94, my mom at 88. By the way, happy birthday to Maxwell Polk Browne, my youngest of 4 children, celebrating 23 today.
It's a great number.
He's in Fort Collins, Colorado, beginning the final leg of his journey to Jackson, Wyoming, where he'll spend his 4th straight summer out in Jackson Hole. It's a great place to be in the summer. And they need workers out there, folks. But by the way, I was talking to my other son, Wilson, up in Charlotte last night. They're doing the TV show Yellowstone is right. There's all kinds of laws being put into effect to keep all these outsiders from coming in and ruining the beauty of Montana and Idaho and Wyoming. As Wilson said, those folks up there, they ain't playing around. If you think Rip is a badass, there's a Rip in every county out there. And by the way, wouldn't Rip Cole Hauser's a pretty cool guy.
Hey, he can coach my football team. He can be my defensive coordinator right now.
That's right. You guys didn't get that game plan? Start digging your own grave. Hey, right. Kevin Costner duck hunts over here between Jonesboro and Parkin. He comes down here and hunts. Yeah, man, I got to get you to go duck hunting with us. And I'm going to tell you something. You would probably be a natural. But I'm going to tell you something. I want to say, as a fan, thank you, because every time I drive by Rhodes College, right now on the right side of North Parkway there, every school bus within 150 miles is at the Memphis. I mean, it's crazy right now, Matt.
Yeah,
but,
the zoo is so busy this time of year, isn't it? With all the kids having field trips to the zoo. I know my kids took advantage of that.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty unique location for us, being right across the street from the zoo. I know there's a lot of barriers, but we hear a lot of traffic. I'm talking about from those animals.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. I mean, when you hear the Simon Gibbons, they go, whoop, whoop, they go, 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 go. You ever heard those are the Simon Gibbons?
Not as well done as you have just portrayed, Rob.
Yeah, and they're from Borneo and Sumatra. They're in Primate Canyon, and they're amazing. But Memphis Zoo, if you want to support that, we have one of the greatest zoos in the world.
We do.
God, I mean, you think about Jim Prentice and his wife, what they have done, and so many people for that Memphis. And one of the coolest pictures I've got was a picture of my dad as a young architect when they were doing some work at the zoo for the primate building. And he's holding 2 baby gorillas in his arms wearing a shirt and tie. Looked like Ward Cleaver, with Wally and the Bee. But anyway, Matt, thank you, because I think about when I'm on a college campus, the people behind the scenes that just don't get the recognition. Now, you obviously got recognition. You've been a head coach. You've been an assistant coach. But, Coach Cleanthes, the baseball coach. I think about Bud Ritchie, Lloyd Templeton, Jim Dogville, all the great ambassadors. My mother went to Hollins and finished at Southwestern, which is now Rhodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talk about some serious ring knockers. That's a tight alumni group. Coach Sherrill's calling us on the phone right now. He's wanting to hire you, Matt. He's gonna make you put you on the staff. But we're gonna get him back on. But thanks.
Well, I may be able to help him get off the mute. That's my only job.
Well, look, what I love, and you mentioned back to Hayden Fry. I have some clients I had some clients for many, many years. The only people I've ever known who kept a vacation home in Des Moines, Iowa, while they lived in Memphis, and they got to know Coach Fry pretty well, and they left basically their entire estate to the University of Iowa. And said, Hayden Fry was just awesome. They said just being up there with them, spending time with them, that nasally old Texas twang. God, he was awesome. But thank you for doing what you do. And let me say this, folks. We'll be back on tomorrow. Got a great show in store for you. We'll get Coach Sherrill back on. But thanks to all the athletic people like Matt Dean that make things happen. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, folks. Don't ever miss an opportunity to thank people and let them know that they matter. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Don't drink too much coffee. Until then, go out and make a difference. We'll see you tomorrow. We're out of here.